Hello and welcome to this COMP3218 video for game design and development at the University of Southampton. Today we are going to be playing some more of our students' courseworks. My name is Tom Blount, I am one of the lecturers on the course and I am joined here today by...
Johan Malinov, one of the demonstrators on the course.
Fantastic. So Johan, could you tell us a little bit about what we asked our students to do?
So we asked them to create a game based on three fables, and they had to make the game in such a way that they have a story engine that would then let the narrative affect the game world, and the game world affect the narrative.
Brilliant. Okay, let's take a look at our first game. And this game is Son of Zeus. So this one we've had to open in the Unity editor because we couldn't get the submitted build working, but it seems to work okay. So let's jump straight into new game. Let's jump into new game. There we go.
Okay.
Hello, my son. So we got some nice background music going on. Not quite as dramatic as the title screen music. Our name is Player. Famous son of Zeus. Father, what is happening? I'm sorry to do this to you, but we need your help. Kronos has built an army, and he's threatening to destroy the whole of existence. How is that possible? I'm not sure. So we've got this nice little sort of cutscene-y introduction to the game and sort of setting the scene. That's really nice. So we need to fight. Check your abilities that are all still intact after your transportation situation. Go and test your... Oh, so we've even got an integrated tutorial as well. That's really nice.
Yeah.
We've learned lessons from the first set of courseworks. So we can move using WASD. Cool, that's a nice little animation as well. Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, our legs are still working. Brilliant. So we've got a lightning attack. I can use my basic attack with J. My beam attack with K, but we need to watch our mana for that.
Okay.
So, wow, these are some pretty good animations actually. So yeah, basic attack doesn't cost us mana, beam attack does.
Okay.
Oh, we can hold that down as well. Laser beams, nice.
And your mana regenerates, okay.
So this...
Oh, you have on the bottom right corner your attacks.
Yeah. So this training dummy is taking a lot of a beating, so I don't know whether we're meant to destroy it and then continue, or whether
Can you jump?
Yes, space to jump. Aha, a health potion. So we've got a lot of different controls here. So we've got A and D to move, space to jump, J and K to use my attacks, V to continue the cutscenes, and L to use a health potion.
Yeah.
But okay. So we've picked up a health potion, so we've got 4 of those now, so information's displayed really nicely. Beware, the enemies you face can hurt you just by touching you. I'm getting kind of a Hades vibe from this. I don't know if that's what inspired this particular take on the story. You even got like a little sort of zoomed out view in the top right. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, because it doesn't show us a lot more than we can see as is. Aha, there we go. Tutorializing power-ups as well. Boing. There's some of Kronos' minions up ahead. Be careful. Dun dun dun.
Okay.
Wow, he took quite a beating. I wasn't sure if that was a platform there. Okay, there's some more of them. They kind of stun lock me. So I guess I'll use a couple of health potions. Haha, you think those 3 pathetic minions mean anything? Dun dun dun. You will find out soon enough. I recognise that voice, but you should probably just ignore it. I'm sure that won't be important at all. Okay. There's something strange happening ahead. This is
getting
a lot of them.
And your mana is almost
little bit of Zed fighting, but not the end of the world. Is that? Oh, it is. It's Hades. Would you look at that? Hang on, Hades and yeah. You there, boy. Release me from this prison and spare yourself a world of pain. All I need is a little of your power, and I can break free. If you don't, you'll regret it. So do we try and let him out of prison, or do we? I mean, he's not been exactly nice to us. I mean, he could have said please.
Yeah, I wouldn't really press F3. Cost 20 health and 40.
That seems a lot of health. I don't think. So we will regret that. Prepare yourself. I will not take it easy on you. Well, I mean, he's in a cage. What do we care? He's turned the whole sky red. I'm not sure if that was wise. Okay, interesting. So the way they phrase that makes me think that actually we should have let him out.
We will see.
Feel the so Hades has added some undead minions to the stuff that we have to fight because we didn't let him out. I could just run past them though.
Oh.
There we go. You've already turned one god against you.
Also, there's more. Okay.
Yeah. Haha, you can't get me if I'm standing on a different platform. Okay, so I think we've seen enough sort of the gameplay at least to sort of start talking about that bit of the mark scheme. So yeah, let's jump into that bit and so yeah.
So first we start with the quality criteria, and the first sub criteria is the presentation. So how the information design and the aesthetics, what do you think about them?
I actually quite like them. So, you know, it's a bit of like an interesting style, but the way the animations sort of work is quite nice. The information's really clear. Ooh, I've just noticed on our little sort of mini screen at the top right, there's a whole bunch of enemies down there as well that I couldn't see otherwise, and a super health power up. So I was just about to say, I don't know what the purpose of that screen is. It's not really doing anything useful. And as I'm about to say it, I find a use for it. So actually, yeah, that's really good. We've got our like important keys in the bottom right. We've got our even a little portrait of us. We've got our health and mana, all like really clearly explained and importantly tutorialized. Audio-wise, we've got some background music. It's not really as dramatic as perhaps it could or should be, but it's there. We've got a bunch of like cool sound effects and stuff, like as we jump and as we shoot lightning bolts out of our hands. So yeah, I think it's actually really good. I would be tempted to sort of.
It does look quite nice.
I would be tempted to sort of say, let's look right at the excellent category off the bat and see whether we think it meets that.
Yeah. So for excellent, it says that key information is shown clearly, which I think it. I mean, to me, it's pretty clear all of the things.
Certainly seems to be.
Then consistent and appealing graphics. And I think it also does a good job there.
Yep.
And good use of audio, like effects and or music.
And yeah, I think we're easily there. So what would it have to do to hit the praiseworthy category? Oh no, I've been stunlocked.
Oh no. Where do you... Ah, wait, is that just... Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, I think there was a checkpoint quite close to where I was, which is handy.
Yeah, so for praiseworthy, it would be novel yet clear ways of showing key information, consistent and thematically resonant graphics, and excellent use of both audio and music.
So I'm not sure it quite reaches that. So for the audio, like I say, the music doesn't quite fit the sort of drama of the game, if you like. What happens if I fall down here? Oh, I just... That's a death pit as well.
Yeah, so the audio can be a bit can do some work then. And I mean, yeah, it doesn't sound like price worthy, but maybe between, because or maybe so the graphics or the consistent and thematically resonant graphics, they are, I mean, they look quite consistent to me. And
yeah, so there's like some of the sprites and like particularly the background stuff, like there's some sort of like, here you can see there's some slightly odd tiling and stuff where stuff has been put together, like but that's not a huge issue. Like the information design, again, like not necessarily like a particularly novel way of doing it, but it's done very well together. So I think we can say it's probably like firmly an excellent.
Yeah. So next bit is the gameplay, like mechanics and controls.
I mean, yeah. So I'm
How does it feel?
I'm certainly playing it. It's certainly good to play. There's okay, that guy's slightly bugged out. Never mind. Like yeah, overall it's really really good. My sort of only real gripe with the way it feels to play is when you get sort of like attacked by one of these things, you're sort of stun locked and can't really do a lot. So it'd be nice if, you know, you sort of got some like what do they call them, iframes, where you're invulnerable for a bit after being attacked, or you just get knocked backwards so you aren't sort of stuck in that. But otherwise, yeah, it's really good. Like there's definitely like meaningful play here. I'm platforming, I'm laser beaming dudes. It's pretty good, yeah.
So okay, let's see the good category. So for good, it should be a set of complementary mechanics and smooth usable controls that lead to meaningful play. And I think we have that from what you said.
Yeah, sorry, I was just seeing if I could progress this thing. Yeah, so controls are smooth and usable. So what would the notch above that be?
Yeah, for excellent, that would be a wide set of complementary mechanics, intuitive and smooth usable controls that lead to enjoyable and meaningful play.
So do we think there's like a wide set of mechanics, I guess is sort of the crux of it.
So there's the attacking.
So we've got health, mana, 2 sets of attacks, picking up potions, max health stuff, like different... I don't know if the enemies are sort of different other than sort of graphically, but the introduction of different enemies sort of as you progress through. I think it probably meets that actually, yeah.
Yeah, there's... Yeah, and also the platforming as a...
Yeah.
And then also the controls are intuitive and smooth, probably.
Like the controls, like I say, like it's a bit annoying that you get sort of stun locked, but it's really not the end of the world, and it could arguably be a design choice.
Yeah.
Like there is no reason to necessarily fight all of these things. Is like maybe one drawback. Like I can easily just sort of avoid all of them and run away.
Yeah.
Although, am I going to get? Yes, I'm going to get killed while I'm in a thing. Okay. Oh, and I can carry on talking while I'm dead as well. Okay. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I kill them so I don't get stuck in that. Okay, so yeah, I think we can say the gameplay is probably like towards excellent or excellent. What do you think?
From what I see and from what you said, it does sound like more towards excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put it at that, and then the next thing we'll want to look at is bugs. So.
There's a few bugs maybe. Minor things.
Maybe. Like a couple of like odd things where like, you know, an enemy, the sprite's still animating when they're dead, but nothing like incredibly major. And I think we can definitely say that the game overall is like complex enough. So
yeah.
So again, what would an excellent be? Let's say.
So excellent would be game is playable and it's reasonably complex. There are no obvious bugs.
And I think it's probably there. Like there's I guess there's a few graphical glitches like this. Maybe it puts it, what's the word? Between good and excellent?
Yeah.
Alright, let's try freeing Hades this time.
Do you have enough health? Oh.
Well, there's enough checkpoints that I think I'll probably be alright for the rest of it. Excellent. So
okay, so I think I'll put it between
cool.
Good and excellent.
So the next bit is the story engine, which so we're going to be looking for sort of
Oh.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely happy about the choice we made for their like sort of gameplay and mechanics, because the fact that these get upgraded and even the sprites and stuff change is kind of nice. And then okay, and this sort of leads into the next bit, which is the story engine. So decisions we make within the game, does that affect sort of the overall narrative? So here we made a particular choice. Previously, you know, the sky turned red and we got different enemies in the game world. This time we get a little message saying, so the story is definitely affecting the gameplay, right?
Yeah, it looks like that.
Is the gameplay affecting the story is the other question. And I think part of the problem we might have here is the story doesn't seem to have an ending. So
yeah.
Possibly they ran out of time or just struggled with scoping things, but like we get to sort of the end of this platform. Like you could definitely see the scope for, you know, a platformer with like more levels and you meet different gods and then you've got the whatever. Like it's fine if they don't include all of that in just a small prototype, but it would be kind of nice if we got that resolution with this mysterious unknown force.
Yeah. So in this case, yeah, I can see how the narrative can affect the game, but you don't really do a lot in the game that can affect.
So for example, like if there was something where we killed everyone and then at the end of the level like Hades was super pleased with us because we'd killed all of these people and added strength to his domain or whatever, and then said something like different, like that could have been kind of interesting. And if we'd sort of just avoided them and ran past, then I don't know, maybe Zeus or another god or something was like, you have shown mercy, well done, you are wise, that kind of thing. So actions that we're taking sort of within the game world having an effect on the narrative and the characters and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see, for good, it should be an effective story engine that is integrated with the game world, and where there are some examples where the story impacts the game world and is impacted by events from the game world. So it's not up to that.
Yeah, I don't think it quite is. So what would a satisfactory be?
Satisfactory is a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world, where there are some examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events from the game world. So we do have that.
Yeah. So do you think it's possibly between the two, or do you think it's closer to the satisfactory end of that scale?
Maybe I would go towards satisfactory more.
Yeah, I think you might be right, because there's definitely. I think that's the thing. I'm sort of looking at it and saying, well, you know, there's definitely the potential for it to go both ways, but we can't see the evidence of it doing that. So I think read out satisfactory for me one more time, because I just want to check something.
Satisfactory is a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events from the game world.
I am tempted to say let's put it between the two, because I think it's more integrated than Satisfactory would give it credit for. So for example, just as we progress through the world, we get different bits of dialogue appearing and things like that. So the story they're delivering is integrated with the world, but there's not like you say, it doesn't have that sort of duality of it acting in both directions. Okay, so next is the agency, the branching of the narrative, and sort of how meaningful the choices that we make are.
Yeah.
So I think this might be the thing that trips it up, because there is sort of one obvious choice that we make, but otherwise there isn't really a branching narrative to be seen, and the choice we make is relatively interesting, but it's just the one choice.
Yeah. So the choice was just to either free Hades or not.
Yeah. So Hades doesn't... Oh, no. I was like, I think I may have gotten stuck now. So yeah, we're... Like, the choice is quite interesting. Like, Hades isn't really set up as a... Like, we don't really have a good reason to free him, other than he threatens us.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I guess, the mechanical choice, like, you know, do we give up some health for potentially some more power? Or do we keep the health and arguably suffer the consequences of Hades' wrath or whatever? I think that kind of works as an interesting choice. Like, there's no right answer. We get to sort of play it how we want. That works quite well. So, yeah, it's the lack of, I guess, sort of branching and sort of multiple choices in the narrative that may hold it back. So what would a satisfactory be?
Yeah, so a satisfactory would be an interactive story with several branching points and some interesting choices.
So that's interesting. So it may not even meet that because it doesn't have like more. It's got one branching point and that's it. So what would a pass be?
A pass would be an interactive story with some branching points, but few interesting choices.
Okay, so technically it does have few interesting choices. It has one choice that is interesting, but I don't think that's quite what the mark scheme is saying. Just as a point of comparison, what would a poor be in this context?
Yeah, in this context, poor would be an interactive story with few branching points, few interesting choices, and player agency is problematic.
So that's the thing. Our agency is limited because there aren't as many choices, but I don't think it's problematic. Like, when a choice occurs, we have like freedom to make an interesting choice regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just the lack of those choices. So I think maybe the pass level?
Yeah, it does sound...
So yeah, what was the pass one again? Because I've already mixed up the two.
Pass is an interactive story with some branching points, but few interesting choices.
And yeah, the difference between that and a good is a number of branching points, right? And
yeah, so pass is just a few interesting choices and some branching points. Satisfactory, several branching points and some interesting choices, and then good is again several branching points and interesting choices and managing their agency.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think it may be sort of just about at a pass level. Like, they've shown that they understand, you know, like what constitutes an interesting choice, but given that the focus of this coursework was to make a non-linear branching narrative, they only really have the one sort of branch point. And again, that might be just down to sort of, you know, scoping, they ran out of time or resources or whatever. But yeah, I think this probably sits around the pass level as a result.
Yeah. So, yeah, it does feel like the choice is, in a way, if you just look at it at the numbers, it's like an upgrade where you trade some of your health for some attack or not. But that's okay, but it kind of feels like just a single choice that immediately closes.
Yeah.
So it's like
and that's the thing,
yeah.
it's the way they've sort of framed it in sort of terms of, you know, you meet this god and you make this like, it's definitely set up so that if they decided they wanted to carry on developing this and they sort of had another level with another god and another interesting choice, and, you know, another level and a god and another interesting choice, and at the end you defeat this unknown force and all the gods you've helped come back and sort of help you out, that would feel really, really cool. So I do kind of hope they carry on developing it in that way. But yeah, I think for now we sort of mark it down as that, and the next stage is the design elements, so poetics and thematics and that whole shebang.
Yeah.
So
poetics is about the narrative and gameplay and the mechanics and how they interact. So I guess we can start with.
So first of all, like we say, we asked them to sort of base this on one of 3 different fables. What fable do you think it was that they chose here?
I would say based on the fact that you give something to Hades from yourself. So it sounds like the Lion and the Mouse.
Yeah, the Lion and the Mouse. I would say that seems to be pretty clearly what they're aiming for. Like particularly because, you know, in the Lion and the Mouse, the mouse rescues the lion from a cage and vice versa.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's got that whole kind of thing. It's interesting that they kind of frame the choice in terms of like, I will do something horrible to you if you don't help me in this way. But
yeah.
Rather than, you know, just doing it as a good deed that won't be rewarded, but then it turns out that eventually it is, kind of thing. But overall,
Yeah,
I think, you know, it matches. Like, the rest of the mechanics of the game don't really sort of necessarily fit into that at all. But I don't think they take away from it. But like the rest of it is just sort of, you know, like sort of standard platformer gameplay with like a little bit of combat. But it doesn't sort of tie into those decisions or choices or the themes of the story they're trying to bring across.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly better than that actually, because there is this sort of like you say, you sacrifice something of yourself, so that does affect, I guess, the mechanics a little bit. But okay, so what would a good be?
Yeah, so a good would be narrative and gameplay complement one another, as the key mechanics are in keeping with the themes of the story.
And a satisfactory as a point of comparison would be?
Yeah, satisfactory is narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story.
And I think that's probably where, like, if there was no mechanical impact of that choice with Hades, I'd say we're at a solid satisfactory. Like, there's no sort of thematic clash, but they don't really help with each other. Because they've got that one little thing in there, I think that probably just bumps them up to sort of halfway between a satisfactory and a good.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like, it's not satisfactory because there is some, as you said, something like that, but
yeah, for it to be a good, it'd have to be sort of like all of the key mechanics sort of supporting it rather than just sort of that one choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is the techniques, the pacing, sort of how they've told the story within the game. So we've got that sort of opening dialogue cutscene. We've got some sort of like dialogue spread throughout. We arguably have like the sort of environmental storytelling of like when we make the wrong choice, if you like, with Hades, the sky turns red, that we start fighting undead as well. Like, that's kind of a nice touch.
Yeah. Does it get harder in the platforming?
Oh, in terms of the pacing, I don't know. I mean, we start to fight more enemies as we go on, and there's certainly the like introduction sort of tutorial segment of it that's sort of relatively stress-free. And the platforming probably gets a little bit trickier. So I would say this like some ascendant pacing. Perhaps it doesn't sort of ramp up as much as it could, but again, perhaps they were planning on sort of developing more levels and like sort of didn't have time to sort of to reach that peak that they wanted to. And I think that's kind of like the main criticism I've got of the pacing, is there's no final climax. You just sort of get to a portal and there you go. It's thanks for completing our demo.
Yeah, which is kind of sad, yeah, because if they added either an ending like you suggested earlier or another level, that would be
Well, even if,
That-
you know, like, if they've run out of time to finish it or something, if they just sort of resolve that thing with the unknown voice, it's like, oh no, you have reached my thing and defeated me, I am defeated. So it's sort of
Yeah,
more...
yeah, exactly.
So that sort of, like, cliffhanger of, oh, you go through the portal, what will happen next kind of thing. Like, that's kind of cool for, like, a demo of a game that you're sort of planning on developing further, and it's a good sort of hook to put into your portfolio to make people want to see what you're going to do with it. But in terms of, again, a narrative coursework game where we've asked sort of to see like that dramatic pacing and the sort of climax at the peak, it doesn't necessarily work as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
In this case, let me see. Yeah, so satisfactory, for example, would be some ascending pacing and use of at least one game writing technique. So there is dialogue.
Yeah, I think it clearly hits that. It's sort of, what's the word? It's more sort of, I guess, cutscene-y dialogue than sort of, you know, dialogue trees or anything. There's no interaction from our part to sort of learn more about the world. But it's a good use of that technique. So what would they have to do to reach a good?
So a good is ascending pacing with a clear final peak and use of more than one writing technique.
And again, I think this is another good category to sort of say they probably reach halfway between the two, but not quite. They don't quite reach the good there.
Yeah. It does feel. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. And the last thing we're looking at is so we gave all of our students some feedback on their sort of game as they were developing it, and we asked them to then sort of, you know, write a short report, sort of talking about how they address that feedback in their game.
Yeah, so they said that initially our idea was to have an attack buff and a loss of health if you have Hades. However, the feedback we got suggested we should add some more effects. There was also suggested they also suggested that a physical change to the environment would be a good effect as well. This was the reason we added minions of Hades you have to face if you did not help him, as well as a change in the sky and background to symbolize Hades' anger at not getting help. We were also told to make our sacrifice to free Hades more impactful. After hearing this, we decided to reduce the player's maximum health, rather than just deal damage that can be easily healed back. So that's all the feedback.
So, I mean, they are both things that we commented on and sort of said, actually, yeah, that's improved the game, so that's good to see. Yeah, they...
Definitely.
Yeah, like, I think it certainly would have been weaker if they hadn't sort of added those particular changes in. So, yeah, they've articulated the feedback quite well. They've made some successful changes. I'm not sure how much of that is sort of like, you know, they've like interpreted or reinterpreted that feedback and then done something with it, or just sort of, you know, they've done exactly what they were sort of suggested to do. So what would a good for feedback be?
Good would be feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made.
You know, I feel pretty comfortable saying, yeah, it hits a good there.
Yeah, and if we want to look at excellent, just to compare, excellent is feedback was clearly articulated, interpreted, and reasonable changes have been successfully made. And
so yeah, I don't know if it quite reaches excellent.
Yeah.
Because they have sort of talked about the changes that they made, but they haven't sort of necessarily talked about why, you know, like why reducing the maximum health is, oh, just noticed I'm at 0 health. What was I saying? Like why that was like the right choice for their game and things like that. But otherwise, yeah, they were good changes to make, and I think they were successful with them. So I think we call that a good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this game. I will be interested to see if they carry on developing it, because I think they've got some good stuff here. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, and this is our next game. So the notes I've got say Mercenary Escape, but the title screen says Adventure Quest, so I guess we'll see as we go. No music, but quite a nice title screen, just sort of like got the name, got some buttons. Let's jump straight into it. Okay. So which character do you think we are? Are we this one?
The that one.
I'm gonna just press some random buttons and see what happens. So it turns out yes, we are sword boy here. So we've got some health, some gold. I'm guessing they've sort of done this with like a fixed screen resolution in mind, and
probably.
So it's not quite scaled ideally. Okay, E to interact at least, so they've got sort of some contextual sort of button prompts, which is nice. Hello there, yet another mercenary in Uptown. Oh, so I clicked to continue and I sort of bopped him over the head with my sword there. Hi, I am looking to leave this town. So previously we were talking to Steve, who I assume is this guy. We don't have a name. This is no place for a mercenary, can you help me? I used to be a mercenary like you, and then I took an arrow to the knee. No, then I didn't manage to escape. I'll help you. I don't have gold, but I might have some information that's useful. I know a way out of this place. What is this place? Are we just like in a town? Are we in a dungeon? You need at least 500 coins for food or travel. It's like, I know a way out. What you need to do is get money. It's like, where can I find enough gold? There's a woman looking for help. Bandit stole something from her, and there's a reward. Okay, so it's kind of nice that we get this sort of like dialogue thing, and every time there's like an ellipse, there's like a little pause before it does the next bit of text. Like that's actually kind of a nice way of putting that together.
Yeah.
House is near the well. If you head south, I'm sure you will stumble upon her eventually. I don't know which way is south in a 2D game, but I'm going to assume it's this way. Okay. There's some gold. Be nice if there was a little noise when we pick stuff up, but doesn't seem to be. I can't press E to interact with this person, but I can push them down a hill. Can I click to talk to him? Nope. Okay. I just knocked him over. He's still carrying on doing his thing. Fair enough. Oh, I've fallen off the level, and okay, I think we may have to quit out and jump right back into this one.
Yeah.
So let's try that again. Just wait for the recording to catch up. There we go. And let's play. So I'm going to just, we've spoken to him, we know what we need to do. We'll jump up here. Let's try going this way instead. So we're looking for a well. Can we climb these ladders, or do we just... Oh no.
Can you jump on them?
So I can jump up, but if I'm inside it, I sort of get gently phased out of it. So I can't go up, or... So I guess they're just decorative ladders, it's fine. Interesting. I kind of... Ooh. What?
Oh.
Okay. Let's just try that again. So, I was going to say I kind of like the background. Like, it's possibly a bit large, particularly this giant house up here, but it's kind of interesting having the sort of like city background kind of thing sort of like looming in the distance. Makes it feel, kind of like oppressive and foreboding and that kind of thing. So, what was it we fell through? Was it those blocks there?
I think, yeah.
Okay. Oh, there's a path back here as well. Ooh. Fell down. Aha, there's a woman and a well.
Yeah.
Aha, so these blocks are not actually solid blocks. Okay, wait. So these ones are solid, but we get just pushed down them, and then these ones are not solid and we can walk through them. Not hugely great information design there. Like, in a platformer it should be very obvious what's a solid platform and what's not. Okay, so this is Sheila. Hi, how can I help you? We got a dialogue choice. I am in need of money. What is in the well? Presumably water, but I'm curious as to what he'll say if we say this. I thought you might ask. I would stay away from there. You will be attacked by the bandits who occupy the caves. Okay. Let's try asking again. It's like, I am done talking about the well. Tell me more about money. Would you like to help retrieve my... I think that's meant to say precious jewels. If you do this, I will pay you. You have revealed yourself? Give me money or else. Aha, I see. So we can decide to mug her, or we can... What is it you wish me to retrieve? Well, she just said, the precious jewels. Pay attention, man. I'm going to try mugging her, just to see what happens. You picked the wrong lady! If you can cast Firebolt... Oh, hey!
Oh, wow.
Would you look at that? She was rich. So I can just get that, and then I'm done. Perfect. Easy. You slightly fall down the stairs if we're walking along. Hello. You have enough. You're free. Okay. Yeah, we got enough money because we killed an old lady. Yay! Let's try that again, but do it the proper way this time, I guess. Although we have started with 500 money. I wonder if none of the other stuff has reset. Do you reckon the woman's still there?
Probably.
Oh, yep, she's still there. That's alright then. Okay, so let's start sort of going through the mark scheme. I guess we'll get to the story bit sort of as the story evolves.
Yeah.
So yeah, first off, like information design, aesthetics, audio.
Yeah, so any audio?
There is some audio when the dialogues appear, but there doesn't really seem to be any else. So it's a shame there's no sort of like background music or attack sounds or picking up money sounds or something like that. That would really sort of add a lot to it, I think.
Next is key information. So goat and health, you can see them easily.
Yeah, so those bits of information are pretty key and are sort of very clear to see. Scene transition. Aha!
Wow.
The background's not quite working as it should, but so again, sort of problems with fixed resolution, I think there.
Yeah, I can see how the health and the coins are always in the same place where the background image is.
Yeah. There you go.
So
can't
I mean here the whole setting looks much different in a sense that like it looks really nice.
Yeah, I mean, background notwithstanding, like it actually feels like a really nicely put together environment. There's like bits of chunks of wall and stuff. It's all quite well put together. Like particularly, which kind of throws into sort of quite sharp contrast how odd the previous one felt, with just sort of like random squares and stuff floating that we couldn't tell if were platforms or not. Like it feels like they maybe could have reused some of these assets, like for towers and platforms and stuff. Oh, that was tricky to get through.
So let's go through the mark scheme then, and
yeah, good idea. So let's start with a satisfactory and see where we go from there.
Yeah, so satisfactory is key information is shown, consistent graphics, and some audio, like effects or music.
And I'm not 100% convinced we're there.
Yeah, the graphics are the thing that, at least to me, seem.
The audio is
because in the first stage it was quite. Some felt out of place. Some things felt out of place.
Yeah, and like I say, not to mention whether you're about to fall through a platform or not is really, really important in a platformer. So okay, what would a pass be?
Yeah, so a pass would be some attempt at information design, consistent but poorly chosen graphics, and some poorly chosen audio effects or music.
Okay, so we may be hovering around there. Again, just for a point of comparison, what would a poor be in this instance?
Poor would be information design is not sufficient, serious inconsistencies with the graphics, absent or poorly chosen audio.
And honestly, it feels like we may be around there. Certainly the information, so like bits of the information design are a bit better, so like the hearts and the coins, like fine, yep, important information, clearly shown. Positioning's a bit odd, but you know, that's not the end of the world. The platforming thing is not great. The consistencies, like with the different graphics and stuff, is a bit jarring. And again, the audio, like the only audio that I think I've noticed so far is that sort of like beep 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 beep, beep as the text stuff is coming up, and other than that, it is pretty much totally absent. So I think we may have to say it's there, like particularly sort of like given the sort of the graphical problems with sort of like the the resolution and whatnot. It's also not hugely obvious like where your attacks are landing and sort of whether they're dealing damage to things. Or necessarily like where you're meant to go. I think I may have gotten lost. So yeah, I think we might have to say this one sort of hits a pause there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've come out there as well, which is odd. Okay, so gameplay.
Yeah, mechanics and controls. So you have.
Okay.
Yeah. So what mechanics do we have in the game?
So we have sort of moving around, jumping, collecting coins, pushing an old man down some stairs. That platform, not solid.
Not...
So now we're falling into the void forever. We've got the sort of dialogue, the dialogue choices. That is a mechanic. We've got obviously the combat, sort of fighting skeletons. Yeah. So there's a set of mechanics. They work okay together. The controls are fine. There's like yeah, it's one of these things that I'm sort of torn between, like, do we talk about this in the bugs section, or is it a sort of a problem with the controls and that kind of thing? Like where we'll occasionally slide down platforms, we get glitched out of ladders, like in the sort of caves down here, like we occasionally get stuck in the scenery a little bit, and it's sort of tricky to get out, like here. So I think that probably comes under bugs though, like bugs and kind of the balance of how they've laid some of this stuff out. Like the controls as they are probably fine. Oh, we also have health pickups and stuff as we're sort of talking about gameplay still.
Oh yeah. And the gold system.
Yeah. So what would a satisfactory be?
Satisfactory is a set of mechanics and usable controls that lead to some meaningful play.
And I think we're solidly at least there. Like, we can fight some skeletons, we can collect some gold. It's not yeah, so I think we can say it's solidly at least there. What would a good be?
Good is a set of complementary mechanics and smooth usable controls that leads to meaningful play.
Honestly, I think we might be part of the way there. So the controls the controls are mostly sort of smooth and usable. Again, it's sort of tricky when you're sort of stuck in situations like that. The combat feels a bit odd to me, so sort of the way you can sort of seem to interrupt your own attack animation, and it's not obvious whether you're dealing damage or not. So like here, I think I'm dealing damage. Yeah, so he died.
I think because the skeleton does blink.
Yeah, so otherwise, like, the mechanics mostly work well together. I think there might be a lot of gold sort of sprinkled around the map, which might sort of undermine the whole go and do this quest kind of part of the mechanics that they've got going. But otherwise, yeah. So I think we can say sort of between a satisfactory and a good seems a reasonable place for this. So bugs. So we've got quite a few sort of minor bugs, again, sort of depending on whether we're talking about the sort of like getting stuck in the terrain a little bit. Falling off the edge of the map into the like void forever, I would say, is a pretty serious bug, because it's meant we've had to restart the game. Overall, I think the game is sort of complex enough that it's the sort of game that we would expect to sort of see bugs like that in, which is why they've sort of appeared. So what would a satisfactory be?
Satisfactory would be game is playable and is reasonably complex, but there are infrequent serious bugs and or frequent minor bugs.
I think that pretty much describes it exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So the next bit is the story, or rather how well they met the brief part of the mark scheme, and we start off with the story engine.
Yeah.
So does the story affect the gameplay? Does the gameplay affect the story?
From what I see, I don't see how the story affected maybe the gameplay. Or...
Yeah, so I would say we can see evidence of the gameplay affecting the story in a sort of relatively trivial way. So when we've collected enough coins, we go back and speak to the person, and we progress the story, or rather, complete and finish the story. Is there any example of sort of a slightly stronger version of that, or where the story affects the gameplay itself? And I'd say not really that I can tell. And this will sort of come up again, I think, when I speak about agency. Like, for example, like there, we can go into the caves and stuff without having accepted that quest and collect the gems and stuff without knowing anything about it. So, oh wow, there's a whole area up here that I didn't even notice. So it's not like it's sort of gated in that sense. And okay, here's another one of those sort of can't get through the platform bugs that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's nothing important up there.
Yeah, I don't see how the story can affects the gameplay unless we count the fact that actually no. So let's see the marking scheme. And a satisfactory in this case would be a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events from the game world.
And we're partially there. As a point of comparison, what would a pass be?
Pass. So a pass would be a basic story engine with poor integration with the game world. There are very few examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events from the game world.
And it might be closer to that. Maybe partway between the two? I think a big part of the problem is there's very little story here, right? So we've got sort of some setup where we're a mercenary, we want to leave town, we need to get enough money. Fine, cool. We go and speak to a person and they say, I will give you some money if you do this thing. But that's not really a story.
Yeah.
I think that's our main issue here, right? We're struggling to see where the story is affecting the gameplay and vice versa because there's kind of a lack of a story.
Yeah, so it's maybe in between.
I think I'd be inclined to say it's probably a pass. Like they've got enough that they can sort of reasonably say that like the game reacts to sort of player progression. But again, it's not really telling a story. Also, I just noticed there's a barrel floating in mid-air.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think in a game where we specifically said this coursework's all about telling a story, I think that's probably a bit of a problem.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The next one is the agency.
Okay, so again, sort of like, is it a branching story? And I mean, like again, if we're very sort of loose and generous with our definition of a story, then kind of yes, because we can decide to mug the lady or do the quest for the lady. But other than that,
yeah,
it doesn't it doesn't really affect the narrative in any way. Like regardless of what happens, we get to the end and the guy sort of says, you've got enough money. It doesn't matter whether we helped the person or killed the person, it's the same ending.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm kind of inclined to say there's no branching narrative here at all.
There's just one choice that...
Like, there's sort of a choice in gameplay, which is, do you want to fight the skeletons or do you want to fight the lady? But it doesn't actually impact the story.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would a pass be in this instance? Ugh, I keep forgetting that that's not a proper platform.
Pass would be an interactive story with some branching points, but few interesting choices.
And I don't know if we're actually quite there either.
Yeah.
So what would a paw be in this instance?
4 would be an interactive story with few branching points, few interesting choices, and player agency is problematic.
I'm not even convinced it's necessarily there, is the thing.
Yeah, because, for example, the one below that is a story with no branches or choices of consequence.
I don't think it's quite there.
Yeah.
They have built a choice into their game. It's just the lack of impact that choice has on the narrative portion of the game is pretty stark. It definitely has an impact on the gameplay. Like, that sort of choice that we make, do we go and... Well, the thing is, it doesn't even necessarily impact that, you know? Like, we could... I was going to say, like, if we make one choice, we have to go into the cave and fight the skeletons. And if we make the other choice, we have to fight the lady. But the thing is, that choice doesn't actually impact that gameplay. It goes back to what we were saying with the story engine. Like, I can ignore the woman entirely, go and fight all of the skeletons, take all of their gold, and then kill the lady. So I guess...
Yeah.
So arguably there's some sort of choice in terms of, like, I don't know what you would call it, sort of diegetic emergent choices sort of that are happening as I'm playing, but that's pretty stretching it. I think... So the question is, does this hit a paw because it's like they've clearly shown the evidence that, you know, they've put in a choice into their game, even if it doesn't have a sort of true non-linear story in it, or do we say it's actually a notch below that because of that lack of story?
Yeah. I'm torn. I mean, yeah, so a few interesting choices. In this case,
I think we may have to put it a notch below paw. We might revisit that after the fact.
between...
I think between paw and absent, because there's just so little story here.
Yeah. So should we go to the next?
Yeah, let's move on to the next bit. So the next bit is... What is the next bit? Is the next bit feedback?
Poetics.
Oh, poetics,
Yeah,
sorry.
so
Yeah, I've missed a whole section. This is the design section of it. So it's how well the sort of theme... again, this is going to be a tricky one to do because there's a limited amount of story we're working with here, but how well do the mechanics of the game reflect the theme of the story that they're trying to tell? So if I had to guess, I would say that they're trying to base this on the story of The Lion and the Mouse, which is all about doing a good deed for somebody and it being rewarded. Do they mention that in their game notes that they've handed in along with this?
So this was Mercenary Escape, right?
Yes, Mercenary Escape.
Okay, so I don't think so.
Okay.
They've talked about how the narrative impacts the game world and how the game world impacts the narrative.
Okay, actually, yeah. Let's. What did they say about that? Just
so how does the narrative impact the game world? Depending on the option you pick throughout the game, there are different outcomes you can receive. You can talk to certain characters in the town and exchange dialogue. For example, you can choose to collect items for non-playable characters throughout the game, and you will receive payment for them. On the other hand, you can choose to kill these NPCs and take the money from them. After talking to some NPCs, they will tell you about areas that you can access without previously knowing. This will give you some information that you need in order to complete the quest.
I mean, there's one NPC that does that. We couldn't interact with the other one, and there's not really any other. So, yeah, I'm not sure that quite quite constituents it. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. The thematics and stuff. So if that is the theme that they're going with, the sort of, you know, do a good deed for a person and maybe you'll get rewarded. Like, again, most of the mechanics don't really support it, because most of the mechanics are about, you know, exploring and collecting things and fighting skeletons. Like, the choice that they've put in, again, it doesn't sort of tie necessarily into like a greater story, but it is thematically appropriate for the story they seem to be wanting to tell. So
Yeah.
let's take a look at Satisfactory and see where we go from there.
Satisfactory would be narrative and gameplay do not interfere with one another, but the key mechanics have little to do with the themes of the story.
We might be there, like maybe a notch above again, because they've got this sort of gameplay choice about do we help this NPC at arguably a cost to ourselves, or do we just fight and kill them for their money? I think maybe we put it a notch above, which might be slightly generous, but let's put it there, and then we'll move on to the next bit, which is
techniques.
Techniques, thank you. So we've got some dialogue, techniques and pacing, right? So what techniques have we got? We've got the dialogue between the characters. We do have dialogue trees, so we can sort of ask for more information. I keep forgetting that flipping platform.
Yeah, so dialogue trees. What else?
That may kind of be it. Do we get an epilogue when we've got enough money? I didn't actually. I don't think we've got enough money to check. I'll go and have a look at that. But I think otherwise, so they've got maybe sort of, you know, one technique that they're using quite well. I'm not sure how many others they're using. In terms of the pacing, I think the pacing is a bit all over the place, because we can just go and look at the entire map like from the start. None of it's like gated, and it goes back to what we were saying about the agency. Like, a lot of that's sort of open.
Yeah. Oh.
So I would say that the pacing is, yeah, there's no real sort of clear final peak, unless we sort of like make the game incredibly short and just stab the old lady and run away. Yeah. So what would a satisfactory be for this?
Yeah. So a satisfactory.
Yeah. In fact,
would be some ascending pacing and use of at least one game writing technique.
So they have the game writing technique. I'm not sure they've got the pacing. What would a pass be?
So a pass would be pacing is unclear or flat. Partially successful attempt to use at least one game writing technique.
I think they're probably partway between the two there.
Yeah, so they have the technique, one technique.
Yeah, but the pacing is problematic because none of it's guided or like narratively or mechanically. There's like, we can go wherever and do anything, and we can even end the game like incredibly quickly. And when it ends, there's no sort of final climax, there's no sort of epilogue period, it's just bam, smash cut to title screen. So yeah. Okay, and then the last bit is feedback. So students were all given some feedback and were asked to sort of respond to it and tell us what they did. So what have they said in their game notes?
I mean, the thing is that they didn't say anything.
Okay, well that's a real shame, because then we basically have to say that it's totally absent, and they've not done that bit of the coursework, which is a shame. Okay, so I think this is maybe a bit of a sort of rough and ready, perhaps slightly unpolished game. It definitely has the potential for it to like continue being developed and sort of like add more dialogue or NPCs, like perhaps they were planning to do. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. All right, here we go, and this game is Temple of Youth. So we've got a slightly austere title screen, I guess, but it's got the controls on it. So we've got move, interact, and proceed. and a little sort of introduction to the story we're in. So you're an 8-year-old boy living alone in a hut in a poverty-stricken village with no idea who your parents were. You have just woken up from your long sleep all alone in your little hut.
Huh.
I think that's quite a nice hut, to be honest, if we're totally poverty-stricken.
Good
Okay.
point, yeah.
Okay, I'm just sort of seeing if we can interact with anything in our little hut. But it looks like no, we just need to go straight outdoors. Oh, we can. We interact with the door to get outside.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, so we get a little noise when we interact with the villagers. Why is the village so sad? A child like you probably doesn't realize how bad the conditions are in the village. We can barely afford any food and water. I mean, I'm surely if I'm like an 8-year-old orphan living alone in a house, I think I realize how bad stuff is. Why can't we ask the head of the village for help? Or why can't we just leave the village? So, like immediate sort of narrative choices, dialogue tree, kind of nice.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I'd rather just leave, but we have asked the boss man and he said he is working on getting enough money for all of us. Isn't that great? Can I talk to him again? Aha, I can. So what if I just say, why can't we just leave? Trust me, I would love to, but everyone here is far too poor for that.
Uh-huh.
Have you noticed anything recently that the children of the village seem to be disappearing? Well, that's ominous. It's like, wait, what? We have no idea. I heard they all get to leave and go on an adventure. That sounds ominous. Boss man is trying his best to find the missing children. He's such a nice guy. Sus.
Yeah, suspicious.
Do you think I might go missing? Let's hope not, although I don't think I'd mind going missing myself. The village is miserable. Wow, this is bleak. I heard rumours that there is a secret cult operating in the village. Don't be saying stuff like that out loud, bad things could happen. Okay, so no choice there, just a thing.
Yeah.
So a nice way of sort of providing some like narrative. It's a shame that it's slightly inorganic, like they're all just standing outside of their houses waiting for us to talk to them.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
My business was doing quite well, but then the boss man needed to collect money to help the village. It's unfortunate, but if the boss man needs the money, it's weird that they keep calling him the boss man.
That's his name.
I mean, this must be the boss man, because look at him, he's huge.
Yeah.
Ooh, some dramatic music all of a sudden. Incredibly ominous music.
Wow.
Looking for me? Yes, I have an offer for you which you cannot resist. All you have to do is follow my orders and you will be handsomely rewarded. It's okay. I think he might be the bad guy. What could you possibly offer me in this poverty-stricken village? There is nothing here that would interest me. All you have to do is go to the temple far south of this village, enter, and retrieve the orb within. I will, in return, reward you with enough money so that you and all your villager friends can pack up and move to a better place to live. That is a really good offer. All the villagers have nothing but good to say about you. Please allow me a minute to think this through. So we can say, I'm not sure I trust you. If it's important, why haven't you gone and do it? Or, this is really easy, the money will help me, let's go. You don't understand. Only a select few are allowed inside the temple. If you don't do this, you will regret it forever. I feel that you are evil. Obviously we can hear this music that's playing. Very well.
Yeah.
I have given you a choice, now you pay the ultimate price for choosing the wrong answer.
What?
Okay then. We just get struck by lightning, the fate of our friends is unknown, the end. Okay then. Let's try that again, shall we? And see what happens if we pick the other one, because that's not a choice, that's just an instant game over. Particularly, it's not even saying, no, I refuse, you're evil. It's just asking for more information. Okay, so this is really easy, let's go and do it. Okay, now we get to continue the game. I guess this is the temple.
Oh, that's nice.
Temple of Youth.
Oh.
That's a lot of skeletons. I can't leave. No, let me out. Help.
Oh no.
Okay. These are my friends. How do you recognize them? They are skeletons. These are my friends I used to play with every day before they disappeared. Nobody came to check on them, I guess. Did they perhaps touch the magical orb and it drained all of their life essence? There's a spooky ghost. I don't want to... let's talk to the spooky ghost. In order to wield this orb, one must answer this question correctly. Answer incorrectly and you will die, as the orb has the ability to kill everyone in a 100-mile radius in the wrong hands.
Ah, interesting.
What is 6 times 9?
Where do you... Ah, okay. So wait, you were how many years old? A 9-year-old boy,
I'm
right?
8, yeah.
Eight. So you shouldn't know multiplication, so I
yeah, you're right. It's 53. Oh! No, we got struck by lightning.
Ah.
And, yep, smash cut to a game over again. And right back to the start. Okay.
Can you actually skip the boss?
I should have checked. I will do that when I inevitably get killed Sega adventure game style next time.
So now if you...
Alright, let's see what happens if I pick this. Well done, correct answer. Now I get an orb that lets me kill everyone in 100 miles. Why are there so many dead children here? I feel like you could have asked that question first.
Yeah.
Many have tried to wield the orb. Only those of pure heart under the age of 8 wield such power.
Ah.
But presumably these children are all... I guess they may not have been pure of heart. Why do the children want such a deadly orb? The same reason we want it, I guess. This could go really bad in the wrong hands. You have to take the orb. As you successfully answered the question, you have to leave the temple with the orb. What if I don't?
Oh.
Okay, I can't. Okay, so they're managing agency in a slightly what's the word? Slightly direct fashion, let's say. But oh, dun dun dun, the boss has moved. Hey kid, why don't you hand over that orb and I will reward you with all of the money you need. But I have heard a lot of bad things about this orb. Well, everyone in the village is saying what a nice person this is, so I feel like if we give it to him... See? Exactly. He says that we can trust him and that he'd never use it to destroy the lives of people. He's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if everyone in the village says we should trust him, he says we should trust him, I don't see why we shouldn't give him the orb. You are wise, yet so naive. That feels like an oxymoron. You saw this coming all along and still decided to hand over the... See it coming? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh no, what have we done? I should go home and sleep. Okay. Oh no, everyone is dead. Oh no. Okay, so this is kind of nice. We get a choice. I'll be honest, it's not a hugely interesting choice. But it's nice that we can sort of see the consequences of our actions in perhaps like a little epilogue kind of thing. You said you would let my friends go. Where is my reward? Dun dun dun. Isn't sparing your life enough of a reward? Walk away with what you have left. Okay, so this is very clearly based on the fable of the... Is it the wolf and the crane? I think it's called, or the wolf and the something or other. So we do a good deed for somebody and they basically say, I'm going to reward you by not murdering you. Okay.
Yeah. So now, while you skip the boss, or try to skip the boss now.
Let's see if I can walk past and see what happens.
Oh.
Yep, so
okay.
Aha, so we can totally just skip that conversation. Okay, so I think we've seen enough of the game that we can start going through the mark scheme. So to start with, overall quality, beginning with presentation, information design. Yeah, overall pretty nice. There's like some lovely jaunty background music as we're in this temple full of dead child skeletons. In terms of information design, I mean, it's very, like, we took one look at the boss and went, yep, he must be the boss, he's huge. It's clear where we need to go because there's a path and fences everywhere else. So like the graphics are all like nicely put together. They're all very consistent. The audio is so there are 2 music tracks. One a lovely jaunty, happy I'm in the village one, and one sort of hugely ominous portent of doom, which may be a bit overkill, but it sort of showcases 2 different sort of musical things. There's no other audio effects from what I can see. But overall, I think we're doing pretty good. So, what would a good be?
Yeah, a good would be key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and appropriate use of audio, effects, and/or music.
Yeah, we may be sort of around there. Run away.
Oh.
So we got. So I'm not controlling any of this. So this is like cutscene, I guess, if you like. They've removed control from the player to go back here.
Interesting.
No. You could have saved your friends and would have been handsomely rewarded with a lot of gold, but now you pay the price for trying to betray me with your life. I mean, I've got a magical orb that can kill people. Are you sure you want to?
Oh.
Okay, fine.
That's
kind of a kick in the teeth. So we've got 2 choices from what I can tell. Either everyone dies, or everyone except us dies.
Yeah.
Alright, well, we'll get into that in a little bit. So, sorry, I got distracted by story. What was a good for the presentation?
Yeah, so key information is shown clearly, graphics are consistent, and appropriate use of audio like effects and/or music.
So I think we're solidly there. I'm not quite sure it hits the excellent. What would they have to do to reach an excellent?
For excellent, it should be key information is shown clearly, consistent and appealing graphics, and good use of audio.
Oh, actually, no, there were some other audio effects. I tell a lie. When you speak to each of the villagers, you get a little a village noise that's definitely not taken straight from another popular game. So they might be pushing towards excellent. I think part of the problem, arguably, with the information design is there's not a huge amount of information to show.
Yeah, exactly.
But we actually, we've got to press E to interact. We've got a little thing telling us who's talking, like it says it's the boss. I would almost be inclined to say it actually might meet an excellent, or possibly halfway between the 2. What do you think?
Yeah, it's either halfway or excellent. So the graphics themselves are also consistent and
consistent and appealing. So
quite appealing.
I think the graphics definitely hit the excellent. Everything's nicely put together. The audio,
effects and/or music. So there is music and some effects.
Yeah. And key information design, like it's sort of clear which way we should be going because of the way they've laid out the level. Like it's, you know what? I think it hits an excellent. I think it, in terms of just the presentation, I think it hits an excellent. So the next bit, I think, is the bit that may have issues, which is sort of the gameplay. So the set of mechanics that we're working with here.
Yeah.
Which isn't a huge amount. It's mostly sort of walking around and pressing interact on things.
Yeah.
And also, like, sort of answering multiplication is not hugely scintillating gameplay, let's say. But okay. So again, let's start with a good and see where we go from there. So
okay, so good is a set of complementary mechanics and smooth usable controls that leads to meaningful play.
And so in terms of the controls, controls are smooth and usable. In terms of the mechanics, I'm not sure there's necessarily a complementary set. So there's not a number of things that act and interact with one another. And sort of as a result of that, like, while we can play the game, it's not necessarily meaningful. Like, we don't have a huge amount of decisions to make. or other interesting decisions to make. We don't have like sort of skill or challenge sort of involved. It's just move to this point.
Follow the line.
Yeah, progress the
Follow
story.
the
Like
story.
it's a very sort of linear gameplay experience, if you like. So what would a satisfactory be for this?
Yeah, so a satisfactory is a set of mechanics and usable controls that leads to some meaningful play.
It's kind of mostly there. What would a pass be? Just so that we've got a point of comparison.
Is few or inconsistent mechanics, challenging controls leading to limited meaningful play. So it's definitely not
Yeah. So
challenging controls.
in terms of so I would say the mechanics and the meaningful play are probably just below satisfactory, but because the controls are smooth and good and it's very easy to sort of actually interact with the game, I think that brings it up to a satisfactory.
Yeah.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah.
Cool. So the next one is bugs and sort of the overall complexity of the game, and again, this is sort of due to the limited set of mechanics that are involved. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of complexity innate in this, so while we haven't seen any bugs, do we think it's complex enough? So
Yeah, exactly.
what would a satisfactory be?
A satisfactory game is playable and is reasonably complex, but there are infrequent serious bugs and/or frequent minor bugs.
So that. What would a pass be?
A pass is game is playable, but is either simple or there are frequent serious bugs.
So I think in terms of simplicity, we may be down, like that sort of pulls it towards the pass side. I will say there's a number of sort of actions and interactions that sort of progress the story. So, you know, picking up the orb like progresses this, like there is scope for some amount of things to go wrong, and we've not seen evidence of that happening, but overall I think it's still, you know, a relatively simple experience. So I would probably put this at around a satisfactory for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds reasonable.
Okay. So next we're looking at sort of how well they met the brief, how well they managed to sort of tell a story. So the first thing we're looking at is the story engine and how the story affects the game and how the game affects the story. And again, this is going to tie back into the sort of some of the problem with the mechanics and things like that. There's not a huge amount of gameplay to change. So what effects can we see acting one way and the other? So if we, for example, if we make a choice here, back at the start rather, we just get killed and the game is over. So it doesn't really have an impact on the game, it just has an impact on the story in such that the story ends.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, so kind of the issue is all of the choices that we make are sort of within the narrative. So we sort of, within a conversation or within a thing, we make a choice. There's no choices that we make within. Okay, so let's take a look at satisfactory again. Sort of use that as a starting point and see where we go.
Yeah. So satisfactory would be a simple story engine that has limited integration with the game world. There are some examples where the story impacts the game world or is impacted by events from the game world.
Okay, so the game world is impacted by the story.
Yeah,
so
that's
like, as we sort of progress through the narrative, stuff in the world changes. So the boss shows up here, everyone turns into skeletons, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely moving in at least one direction. So is there stuff that we're doing within the game that affects the sort of outcome of the story? And I mean, there's the choices that we make here, but again, they're sort of like they're choices within the narrative that affect the narrative. It's not something that we've sort of done as a player using the mechanics of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think that sort of puts it around satisfactory, or is it somewhere sort of to the side of that?
I mean, the one lower would be a basic story engine with poor integration with the world, game world, and it doesn't. I mean, it is integrated as in the narrative. You make choices and things change, and it does sound like it's around satisfactory.
Yeah, I think
limited integration and.
Yeah, I think it's integrated okay. It's just the sort of, like you say, it's that it only really goes sort of one way as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is sort of agency, branching points, and how interesting those choices that we as the player are making. And I think, again, this might be a little bit of a hindrance.
Yeah.
So the choices that we have... What are the choices that we have in this game? So there's the very first choice at the start, where...
So you either accept or decline.
And if we decline, then we game over. So that's not an interesting choice, because we have to choose one of those things.
Then the riddle.
The riddle, again, that's not an interesting choice. That's just either a game over, and in any case, there's a right answer and a wrong answer. So it's not a choice that we're making.
Yeah, exactly. You choose to give the wrong answer, in a sense, but that's not a meaningful choice.
So I would say that this is kind of the most interesting choice, and again, there's...
Yeah, exactly.
But again, the sort of consequences of this kind of undermine it, because whichever we pick, like, everyone we know dies, so there's no real choice to be made.
Yeah.
Like, it's really odd that it sets it up so that, like, this guy is clearly not to be trusted. He's got ominous music around him. He tells us to go into this building full of dead children. And if we run away from him, we get a worse ending than if we side with him. So I think that's kind of the problem. I think that's the main thing. The agency is problematic. We don't have a lot of choices within this game, because anytime we make a wrong choice, we just get struck by lightning and die.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So what would what would a pass for this be?
A pass is an interactive story with some branching points, but few interesting choices.
And yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So there are definitely branching points, but they're all immediate dead ends, if that makes sense. Like, getting a game over is like not a branch in your story, really.
Yeah, it's just the game over.
It's like saying, Call of Duty is a branching narrative, because if you get shot, then the story ends and you've died. And that's not really the case. So what would a pour be for this?
A pour is an interactive story with few branching points, few interesting choices, and player agency is problematic.
And it kind of feels like that's actually where we are for this.
Yeah. Because, interactive story, few branching points, few interesting choices, and player agency is problematic. Is the player agency problematic?
I mean, I would say so, because all of the branches are sort of immediate dead ends. We don't have the agency to make choices.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
okay.
What's next? Next is how well they sort of designed all of those different elements, starting with poetics and thematics, right? So they've clearly based this on the fable of the wolf and the crane or crow. I forget which kind of bird it is. I think it begins with a C, which is all about, don't do a good deed for somebody wicked, because they will turn on you. And I mean, that certainly comes across. It's kind of a shame that, like, again, it feels like it kind of undermines itself, because if we don't do the good deed for somebody wicked, we get a worse ending than if we did. Yeah,
exactly, and it feels... if it was the other way around. I mean, where you don't do the good deed and you actually get a better ending. That would be, in a sense, better.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
So we get the yeah, or like, you know, like maybe you destroy the orb or something, so everyone in the village is still poor and hungry or whatever, but they're not dead. Like something to sort of to like, because the problem is I think we kind of say that, yeah, the actual, like, if we look at it in terms of those choices that you make are the game's only mechanics, the mechanics deliberately undermine the moral of the fable that they're trying to tell, because they push you towards making those choices to complete the story, if you like, but it actually ends up with the wrong message. It's like the message of this game is almost, you should go along with what the evil person says, because then at least he won't kill you.
Yeah.
So I what would a pass for this be?
A pass for that is a narrative and gameplay have some conflicts. Some of the mechanics go against the themes of the story.
And what would a poor be again? Just point of
Poor,
reference.
so a poor is narrative and gameplay are in conflict. The key mechanics are opposed to the themes of the story, or the themes of the story are unclear.
Oh, this is interesting. I've also locked us inside this house because I went back in the temple.
Oh, really?
Oh, there we go. Oh no, I didn't. The orb just wasn't displaying for some reason. Anyway, okay, so I don't think the mechanics themselves are necessarily at odds with the theme, because the mechanics still revolve around, do you help this person or not? I think kind of the outcome of them undermines it. So I don't think it's a poor. I think it probably hits around a pass, because they are, like, the theme is very the theme that they were going for is very clear. I think it's just muddled by the outcome of the choices that you make.
Yeah. So
I would say this sort of hits a pass. So some of the things are ultimately in conflict with the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we still could tell what story they were trying to tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Next one is the techniques.
So we've got dialogue trees, we've got this little cutscene. So in terms of those, relatively good. So they've used like a couple of different techniques. They use it to sort of flesh out the story in the world. Some of it is a little bit on the nose. Like I say, there's all of the people in the village lined up outside ready to talk to you. But, you know, a small prototype, it showcases like what they've learned. That's fine. Pacing is limited by the fact that they've got, like I say, a very limited set of mechanics to be working with. But I would say there is definitely ascendant pacing and a climactic scene. I mean, certainly everyone in the village being killed, you've got to admit, is a climax. It's not necessarily... Yeah. So there's a narrative climax, there's not really a mechanical one. Like, it's not like, you know, we've like had the final boss fight, or had to answer the trickiest riddle, or that kind of thing. So in terms of pacing from a sort of gameplay point of view, it doesn't necessarily match with what's happening in the narrative, which I think is a bit of a shame. But otherwise... They have a sense of story and a setup and a payoff.
Yeah, exactly. So
let's jump straight into good and see what happens.
Yeah, if you look into good, that's narrative and gameplay complement one another as the.
Nope, that's the other one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, techniques. So that's ascending with a clear final pick and use of more than one game writing technique. So they have the use of the game writing techniques. Yep.
And I think they probably have the... Okay, what would a satisfactory be, just so that we can compare the pacing element?
Yeah, so satisfactory is some ascending pacing and use of at least one game writing technique.
I think it probably falls maybe halfway between the two then, because like I say, that mismatch between sort of what we're doing within the game and sort of like means the pacing doesn't feel like it has quite the climax it's going for.
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking the same. It's not satisfactory because there are quite a few techniques, but it's not good because there is. Yeah.
Partly also because the scope, if you like, of it is so limited. So if we start here, we walk over there, and we walk back, there's not a huge amount of time for that pacing to properly build.
Yeah.
But like they're definitely along the right lines with it. So yeah, I think between satisfactory and a good seems fair for that. And that brings us on to the feedback section.
Yeah. So they have 2 bullet points. The first one is the story ends too soon after the final decision, so the player doesn't have a chance to come to grips with their actions. Added mini scenes which show the consequences of the choices. The final end screen emphasizes the consequences of the choices made. And the second one is added a couple of more endings to the game. We had 2 different endings at the start of development, however the number of endings has been increased to 4.
Okay, so we've got give the orb, don't give the orb, die immediately at the start, and die immediately when we get the question wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Not convinced by that, because again, like I say, a game over screen is not really a sort of a narrative ending.
I mean, you could make it narrative in a few different ways, but the way that they did it is not.
Yeah, like I would say that they definitely have 2 different endings. There's, like I say, there's everyone dies or everyone except you dies. They're the 2 endings. But the first one I will agree has sort of improved it. I like personally quite like that sort of whole epilogue sort of sequence after like the big climax at the end of your game, where you get to sort of see, you know, the consequences of your actions. So sort of having the little having it sort of pan over to see all the skeletons or something like that, while somewhat grim, is a nice touch. So I think that has been a sort of a successful addition to the game.
Yeah. Let's start with. I'll start with, I guess, good and see how we go from there. So feedback was articulated and reasonable changes have been successfully made. So I don't think it was articulated that good.
Yes.
Because for the second bullet point they just say added a couple of more endings, because we had 2 different endings before and now we have 4. And they don't say if we
like they don't
told them.
Yeah, they don't expand on sort of why that was important to like their narrative, or sort of exactly sort of what endings they've added and why they felt they were like important to it. Judging from the first bit, you know, that like the game ends too abruptly, so we added this bit. I think it's reasonably that's reasonably well articulated. Like it's quite a simple bit of feedback and a response to it, so there's not a lot more you could do to articulate that. Do we think it's I think the thing is it's a very small change to the overall game, so it has improved it slightly, but it's, you know, it's had some partial success in improving the game.
Yeah. So a satisfactory in this case would be feedback was articulated and some changes have been made with partial success.
So I think it probably sits between a satisfactory and a good then. Because some of the changes that they've made, yeah, some of the changes that they've made have like been successful in a limited way, and some of them have sort of been like partially successful. So again, sort of adding those like alternative endings hasn't necessarily detracted from the game, but I don't think it's added the thing that they were hoping for.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So yeah, if we put that between the 2 there, I think that rounds off this game.
Yeah.
And that's actually the last game for this batch as well. So thank you very much for watching, and we will see you at some point again in another video.
Yeah, bye.